Well, here in France, 3 women have been charged over another foiled Islamist plot. They're accused of planning to blow up a car near the Notre Dame Cathedral in the centre of Paris last week. Haximais Belkin has the story.
They were spurred by repeated calls from the Islamic State organization, and now Ines M., Sarah H. and Amel S. have been put under formal investigation, charged with attempting to carry out terror acts in France. The 3 women had plans to blow up a car using gas canisters near the capital's iconic Notre Dame Cathedral. One of their bags contained a letter pledging their allegiance to the Islamic State group. The 3 were arrested in the suburbs of Paris last Thursday. A 4th woman was charged over the weekend after her fingerprint was found on the rented car. According to French authorities, another terrorist plot has been thwarted. A 15-year-old boy has been charged on suspicion of preparing an imminent attack on a walkway in the 12th arrondissement of Paris. The minor was known to security services and had been under house arrest since April for suspected links to Islamist extremists. Alleged terrorists in both plots are suspected of using the encrypted messaging service Telegram to communicate with a French jihadist recruiter called Rashid K., who's believed to be operating out of Syria or Iraq.
Well, earlier this week, the French Prime Minister Manuel Valls said that France was thwarting terrorist attacks on an almost daily basis. Valls claims that some 15,000 French nationals are now thought to have been radicalised, and he's calling for more prisons to be built. Well, joining me now is Yan St-Pierre, a consultant at the security group Mossicon. Thanks for being with us on France24. A recent study claims that the French state of emergency in place since the terrorist attacks last November and then renewed following the attacks in Nice. That state of emergency is doing very little, in fact, to improve security in France. What is going wrong? What are the shortfalls?
Well, first of all, good evening, and thank you for having me. We're dealing with a generational problem. It's not the state of emergency is basically putting a Band-Aid on an open wound. It's there. It's to show that something can be done. It's to prevent, to try to mitigate any type of attack in open spaces. But it doesn't stop the planning. It doesn't stop terrorists from wanting to carry out attacks. It doesn't stop them from communicating, from planning. And so as such, until the root causes that push people to want to act in the name of Al-Qaeda or ISIS or whatever groups, it's going to take a long time. And the state of emergency in this case will not do much.
Now, Manuel Valls said at the weekend that there were now 15,000 people thought to be radicalised in this country. That has gone up from 10,000. Why is the number of people growing?
Well, we have to be careful with the way Prime Minister Valls presented this. It's people officially listed as S, which means it's basically anybody that's considered to be a threat to national security. So that's very large. Also, he mentioned it's in the process of being radicalized, which is again something that is a very large and not very defined. So, but it does speak to the fact that one of the biggest factors with ISIS's success, with the Islamic State's success, has been, and people want to have, they want to jump on the so-called bandwagon and try to, have their own little piece of glory. And I'm not surprised in light of, the attacks in November, what happened in Brussels and earlier this year in March, as well the attacks in Nice. So there's a tendency. There are many factors, of course, in France that play around this, but it's not surprising. Security forces are overwhelmed. On the other hand, terrorists are making gains, so it's a perfect storm.
There are some politicians on the right, such as presidential hopeful Nicolas Sarkozy, is calling for preventative detention for people thought to have been radicalised. How conceivable is it that something like that might happen in France, in your view?
Well, first of all, it's not a very practical solution. There is money, more prisons. I believe it's something 10,000 or 20,000 more places for more cells are to be built, but over 10 years. It's something. It's well known, whether it's in Germany, in France, in other countries. Prisons are known havens for terrorists. They're basically areas where radicalization is very strong, regardless if it's religious, if it's political. So it's not necessarily the best method. Also, if there you need basically the idea behind a prison is once somebody's condemned, you say, well, this person deserves to live out his sentence. But in this case, it would essentially be, well, we suspect you of being eventually or possibly dangerous. And this is a slippery road, and it will not work at least not the way it's presented by former President Sarkozy.
All right, Yan St-Pierre, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.